that even as we pray to you as a God who is powerful, you who make a dwelling place within us also make us powerful, that we can be people who dream, who have visions for justice, who can believe that everyone will sit under their own vine and their own fig tree, and that, God, we might have the kind of imagination that we might believe that everyone who is in Wake County might have a dwelling place. Expand our imagination and help us to know that we are not helpless or hapless or powerless, but that we are indeed better together, for you have made a dwelling place within us. We ask all of this in the strong name of the one who creates, redeems, and sustains. Amen.
Here to organization. One Wake got its start when a group of pastors and organizers met here at this church, right through those doors. We wanted to figure out how we could work together to address the needs of people in our communities, and we had questions. What was keeping people in our city poor? What were the policies and procedures pushing out of housing, keeping people locked into low-wage jobs, and keeping children in under-resourced schools? How could we address that? How could we change that? We looked around and we saw other people were asking these questions, and they were tired. Are you tired? Because we saw people who were tired with getting the bare minimum. We saw people tired of living off whatever crumbs would fall from the table of the unholy union of government and corporate interests. And so you know what we did? We got those people together. And we met again. And we met again, and we met again, and those meetings continued for 5.5 years. More and more people and institutions saw what we could do when we built people power here in Wake County. That small group here in St. Ambrose has grown to 6 member institutions. We represent diverse religious traditions because we believe we can transform our community. To shape our agenda, we met with 5,000 Wake County residents. 5,000. We listened to stories. We heard about what kept people up at night. And from those listening campaigns, 3 issues emerged. Number 1, affordable housing. Number 2, jobs that pay a livable wage. And number 3, a more equitable school system for all. One Wake's purpose is to build power so that those in our community and our organization can go from eating the crumbs of the table to getting a seat at the table. Our power comes from organizing our people, you, and our money. The combined membership of our institutions represents 50,000 Wake County residents, and we raise our own money. We're not in debt to any corporate interest, any political party, or any candidate. We are guided by the shared values of diverse religious traditions and the concerns that are named by Wake County residents. And tonight, you will hear from the people who want to represent us in Raleigh City Council. And so we'll get to hear your reaction to this agenda set by 5,000 meetings across our county. And then we'll get to hear what y'all think about that. We want to be clear about a few things in advance. We are not partisan in our power. We don't endorse political parties and we don't endorse candidates. But if you're interested in reshaping housing in Wake County so that those left behind and pushed out by developers are central to a vision of a thriving city, we want to work with you. if you want to shift the landscape of wages so that everyone has enough, we want to work with you. If you want to address access and opportunity in our school system so every child can flourish, we want to work with you. Now, we don't expect these candidates to give a blanket endorsement to this agenda, just as we won't give these elected officials our blanket endorsement. And because of the time and because we're so pleased by the turnout of candidates, our focus tonight is solely on the issue of unaffordable property taxes and the displacement of long-term, low-income homeowners in our city. Friends, we've gathered here tonight in person and virtually because we share a vision of what the world could be, where every person has a seat at the table, regardless of what company you work for, regardless of how much money you make, or how much you have contributed to a political campaign. Our vision is a Wake County where everyone has a place to live, where every child gets the education they deserve. We want a city where low-income residents are represented with as much fervor as wealthy residents, developers, and corporations. And we are here tonight because we believe that we can bring that world to life. I'd like to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Reverend Dr. Donna Battle.
I am Donna Battle, member of Southeast Raleigh Table and a Raleigh resident. It is my role tonight to expound upon who we are by listing our dues-paying members, member institutions, as well as giving a brief update on our progress educating voters this fall. Our dues-paying member institutions are as follows: Antioch Bible Fellowship, Baptist Grove Church, Beth Shalom, Cary First Christian Church, Cary Presbyterian Church, The Carrying Place, Christ the King Lutheran Church, Common Thread, Dorcas Ministries, Eastern Wake Ministers Alliance, Ecclesia, Episcopal Church of the Good Shepherd, First UMC Cary, Friendship Chapel Baptist Church, The Fountain of Raleigh, Good Shepherd United Church of Christ, Greenwood Forest Baptist Church, Hayes Barton Biblical Justice Action Team, Holy Trinity Lutheran Church, Iglesia Fiesta Cristiana, Islamic Association of Raleigh, Juniper Level MBC, the Kirk of Kildare Presbyterian Church, Las Americas R2W Association, Macedonia UMC, Pleasant Grove Church in Cary, Pullen Memorial Baptist Church, Raleigh First Baptist Church, Raleigh Mennonite Church, Raleigh Vineyard, St. Francis UMC, Southeast Raleigh Table, St. Ambrose Episcopal Church, St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church, St. John's Episcopal, St. Mark's Episcopal, St. Paul's Episcopal Church, Tapestry Church, Temple Beth Or, Trinity Episcopal Church, UU Fellowship of Raleigh, Yavne, Watts Chapel Missionary Baptist Church. These are our dues-paying member institutions. So in addition to organizing this candidate assembly, One Wake institutions have made a collective commitment to engage 3,800 voters in low voting precincts across Raleigh that have been hardest hit by housing cost increase. So I am here to report that we have already reached 1/3 of our goal. With over a month to go until the election, So far, One Wake volunteer canvassers have knocked on a total of 1,170 doors. And this has been to engage infrequent voters in nonpartisan relational conversations. So here is the ask and the invitation for you. If you are here and you've been wanting to find a way to get your boots on the ground, to walk the streets, to engage the people, to be proximate, as Brian Stevenson would say, to the things that are real. If you would like to support this work, the invitation is extended now, and you can sign up for canvassing and for a shift on our website at www.onewake.org. www.onewake.org. It is my pleasure to introduce the one who is hosting us and whose house we sit in, Father Jamon Taylor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamon Taylor, rector of St. Ambrose, and to my sister pastor, I'm just a shepherd, but it's God's house. Whenever One Wake is here, I say, welcome home, because a seed that was planted here 6 years ago has taken root and is now bearing fruit. Last October, we had a public action in which City Council members Corey Branch and Stormy Fort heard from a group of One Wake leaders and a group of homeowners concerning skyrocketing property and tax increases throughout Wake County. They spoke about a tale of two cities. On one side, there was new development, new luxury apartments, trendy new restaurants, and retail that benefits the wealthier residents with means to enjoy them. And yet on the other side, there was a history of segregation, underdevelopment, and lack of resources, where these new surge in development feels intrusive and often leads to displacement. This very neighborhood, Rochester Heights, in which we are now meeting, was one of two neighborhoods zoned in 1956 for black people to live during segregation. And many people in that time purchased homes in this neighborhood. Where we are now is in the flood zone. St. Ambrose Church is in the flood zone. And so these residents who purchased their homes with the promise that their homes would not flood found their homes did exactly that. They flooded. This is where Raleigh dumped raw sewage for 70 years and was a de facto trash dumping site. Most importantly, what happened in this neighborhood is that it was through the power of the African American members of Rochester Heights that a new organization began, and they began to come together and organize power to change their reality. The residents here, even though this is where sewage and garbage had been dumped, turned this dump into a community. Our sister, Reverend Lisa, said in her prayer that she wants God to make us a dwelling place. And it was our brother, Luther Vandross, who said a room is still a room, but a house is not a home. So the question is, how can you have a home in Raleigh when you have no house? Then you don't have a home. But the residents here did the unthinkable. They made a home when they had no house. Like most cities across the country, areas like Rochester Heights with close proximity to downtown are becoming desirable places to live. And the Raleigh makeup and the makeup of the community is different. We see tall buildings in close proximity to Rochester Heights. We see luxury apartments. We see McMansions and homes. We see high-end eateries. We see bike lanes being put in. We see dog parks and other signs of gentrification. And we see the John Canes of the world getting tax credits for these developments, while lower-income homeowners are being burdened by property taxes that increase by as much as 400% in some areas. And concerning this specific issue of disparate property tax increases, there are $1 million homes in North Raleigh where property taxes decreased, while taxes in this neighborhood went up by 100%. They doubled. These homeowners would like to see their city become a space in which prosperity is equitable. In short, they're asking for, and we as leaders in the community are asking our elected officials to work with One Wake to lessen the pressures being forced on these longtime homeowners. Over the last 16 months, One Wake has knocked on over 1,000 doors in Southeast Raleigh alone. We've spoken to over 500 homeowners who have gathered in person for a series of community meetings. In those conversations, we heard stories about longtime homeowners and families who are being forced to leave their neighborhoods where some have lived their entire lives due to skyrocketing property taxes. I heard the story of one resident who lived in a home that his grandfather bought in 1960, who said that he plans to sell his home by 2024 because that's the next property tax increase rate. And I asked him, where is he going? He says, I don't know, but I can't live here. The same homeowners who once labored to improve their neighborhoods and build communities to reflect their love for the city now fear losing their homes, and many have already lost their homes. As we understand, in just a portion of the city, one part of Raleigh, 1,500 African Americans have left or been uprooted and been replaced by 4,500 of their white counterparts. That's a net of 6,000 black families in deficit, largely due to unaffordable property tax increases. We believe that these longtime homeowners are important investors in the city of Raleigh. They deserve the opportunity to benefit from Raleigh's dramatic economic transformation, which wouldn't have been possible if not the thousands of residents just like them had spent their entire lives working to make this place so desirable to work and live in. We will next hear firsthand testimony from two homeowners and how this issue has impacted them, Ms. Elaine Peoples-Brown and then Ms. Carmen Cawthon.
Good evening. Okay. I'm Elaine Peoples-Brown, and I grew up around the corner of Callaway and Boaz. And please forgive me that I'm a little shaky tonight because today is the 100th anniversary of my dad's birth. So had my dad lived, he would have been 100 years old today. I want to share with you briefly that when I was coming along, when I was a little girl running up and down Callaway Drive and then went on to graduate from the great J.W. Ligon High School, I did what my parents and our teachers advised me to do. They said, go to college so you can come out of college and get a good job. So I did that. I went to a wonderful HBCU in the Tidewater area, and I got a college degree. I married and lived in upstate New York for about 4 years, and then ended up in Atlanta, Georgia in the 70s. And I had chosen a career in human services. And that's a career, as many of you know, doesn't pay a whole lot of money. All of my jobs were on soft money. That meant I worked 2 or 3 years, and when the money was gone, then I'd be out of work for 6 months. And I did that for many years, had some wonderful experiences in every aspect of human services that you could possibly think of. But one day, about 15 years before what one would consider normal retirement age, I was forced into early retirement due to my health. And actually that was my vision challenges, for which I'm still experiencing. So I was forced into early retirement at age 52. I think about, how do you live on half your salary when you're sending a girl to college and just trying to maintain? So I did what any clever young woman would do. I moved back home. I moved back to Raleigh, and I moved back in with my mom and moved back to our home house on Callaway Drive. And my mother and I were sharing that home together for 15 years until she went to heaven. And at that point, then I'm left with, how do I maintain this home? How do I maintain this beautiful home in this neighborhood that I love on half the salary, half the human services salary? So I didn't have a big savings and investment account. I heard all my friends talking about 401ks and IRAs. All I had was 401J. That was 401 Jesus. He's never failed me yet. I've never walked out of my home. I've never walked out of my home looking raggedy. And as you can see, I've never missed a meal. But the property taxes have increased at an exorbitant rate. My taxes have more than doubled in the last 5 years. And it turns out that, most people go to the mailbox every day. You run to the mailbox, you think, I don't know what you think you're going to get, maybe a check or a love letter or a stock certificate. But I actually dread going to my mailbox because that property tax bill is something that just brings me a lot of stress. I just don't have that kind of money where I can just write a check to Wake County for $2,000, $2,500. That's a lot of money. My homeowner insurance has gone up 34% in the last 1 year. And I could go on. And you all know this because many of you are property owners. But what I want for those who are making decisions about grants or any assistance is that it's very, very important. The stability and the comfort and the security of home ownership is very, very important. And it becomes more important as you get old like me. I want for my home to stay in my family. My granddaughter actually loves Raleigh and would like to be here one day permanently. I hope that I can leave my home to my granddaughter, but I don't know if she'll be able to afford the property taxes on an educator's salary. And so I ask each of you who have if you got any power, any thoughts, any magic wands that you can wave, indulge us and give us some support and some assistance in this, because it is not a pretty thing to get a bill out of the mailbox that you have no earthly idea how you can pay. And that's not what I signed up for when I went to that lovely HBCU more than 50 years ago. I never thought I'd be in this position. But I thank you all for your consideration, and just remember that 401 Jesus never fails. It never fails. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carmen. I'm going to throw Wimberley in there because a lot of people still know the Wimberley. Cawthon. I am a native of Raleigh. I've lived here for 63 years. When I married in 1990, we rented a house and eventually were offered that home to purchase in the Oberlin community. We bought it after we had lived there for 10 years, so we knew all the ins and outs except for the property tax piece. We were fortunate in that the gentleman who owned the house sold it to us for the tax value. And that was a blessing. I was a state employee. My husband was starting his own business, so we could afford that. After we bought the house, the gentleman who sold it to us came to me and he said, "You know you could sell this next week for another $10,000 and make a profit." Well, I was pregnant and I didn't care about packing up anything and moving anything anywhere. Our property taxes increased a little bit, but not much. And then the tax value doubled in 2007. It was a shock. It was also the time that we began to notice that the elders in our Oberlin community, who had been all black, who had been family members of the original starters of Oberlin, were dying, and their families who didn't live there were beginning to sell the properties. The area was becoming more desirable for white people, and the cost of purchasing land or a new house in the neighborhood was very intense. We rapidly realized that we needed to stay put, because if we were getting to a point where we were going to have a hard time paying for what we were living in, it was also happening across Southeast Raleigh. And where were we going to go? And we both were from Raleigh and we loved the place. So we decided to stay put at least until our last child, who was able to walk to school to Broughton, graduated in 2018. By then, the tax value for our house had quadrupled. Our original mortgage was $400 a month. We got a second mortgage to add a bathroom and a laundry room and a mechanical closet, and redo the HVAC system, because we had purchased the house. And you know, as things get older, they have to be fixed, not just houses, but us too. As the taxes climbed each year, that meant that our mortgage payment climbed as well, because the taxes and the insurance were built into the escrow. And so eventually, when we combined the two mortgages, that brought us to a single mortgage payment of about $800 a month, which was still doable. As the taxes climbed each year, everything else climbed, and eventually I had been paying $1,000 a month to try to make sure that we were catching some of the principal and not just the interest, so that we wouldn't have a mortgage forever. But as I said, everything was increasing. It was a strain on our finances, because you can't budget yearly increases if you don't know what they're going to be. And so at the beginning of the year, you get a mortgage statement that says your escrow is this amount, you've got this much left in your escrow account, and if you don't figure out a way to pay the difference in 3 months, then the escrow that's part of your mortgage is going to increase. The pain of the tax value alongside the beauty of an asset is a juxtaposition, and it's hard to keep up with when one is on a fixed income. And I will say to you that a fixed income is an income when you don't run your own business. Your fixed income is whatever somebody pays you every month. It changes when you retire. I had health issues. I was on oxygen. I worked for 2 years on oxygen 24/7, and then I just got to the point I couldn't do it anymore, and I came home in 2011. And my check dropped by a third, and then after a year it went up a little bit, but not enough to keep up with these increases. I'm glad to see that Wake County staff has been working with One Wake and homeowners to begin to implement a new form of assistance that will help. But I want to know, as a voter, as a community member, as a longtime resident, that those people who are coming into office are going to make the same efforts that have already been started, are going to continue to help grow those. I've watched too many people lose their homes, whether they owned a home, whether they rented an apartment, because somebody was coming in to buy that property, take it over, redo it, and shoot the price up. Sometimes it was just because they could, and if it was rental property, they would find reasons to put people out. And sometimes it's because family sells homes because they cannot afford the property taxes. So I just want to really quickly tell you, when we bought the house in 2000, the property tax value was $65,000. The next year it went to $92,000. And it stayed that way until 2007. The property tax value then increased to $196,000. In 2016, the property tax value went to $205,000. And in 2020, it went to $319,000. Now that sounds beautiful. You know, part of why you buy your house is to have an asset. But let me share with you that Oberlin is white now. The black neighborhood that I moved into maybe has 10 families left in it, 10 black families, maybe. And a lot of it is because people could not afford these taxes. It's sad. We don't want to see us leave the places that were home for so long. And we need to know that those people who we elect care about us. Thank you.
Good evening, One Wake. My name is Javier Almendarez Bautista. I'm a priest at St. Paul's Episcopal Church, and I am the co-chair of One Wake Strategy Team. My role tonight is to lay out our proposal and to lead our exchange with candidates alongside Father Taylor. Tonight, we have heard that there is a problem in Raleigh. Property taxes in our communities are disproportionately affecting low-income African-American homeowners. In One Wake, we have a practice of breaking big problems like this down into tangible, winnable issues. So tonight, my role is to share the goals of our current campaign. What we are proposing tonight moves us one step closer toward resolution, one step closer to keeping longtime homeowners in Raleigh proper. We have already been working with our county commissioners on this program, so the bulk of the work here is done. The question is whether Raleigh candidates will follow Wake County's lead. In a moment, we will ask those who are running for City Council if they will support our goals and if they will commit to work with us to develop a working program to meet those goals before the start of the next fiscal year. Our goals are to prevent the displacement of as many long-time low-income homeowners as possible. In designing this program, we had to figure out a way to help those struggling with skyrocketing property taxes while remaining in compliance with the laws of the state of North Carolina. And for this reason, we have worked with Wake County commissioners to develop a new program called the Homeowner Care Fund. It will help low-income homeowners who are spending over 30% of their income on housing, which includes a mortgage, property taxes, home insurance, and utilities. Wake County is considering the following investments as part of this new Homeowner Care Fund. An increase of $1 million to the Crisis Intervention Program, heating and cooling assistance, serving an additional 1,667 households. Creating a new major repair program funded at $1.5 million to address gaps in existing repair assistance available, and an increase of $1.6 million to the Affordable Home Development Program. Our first question for Raleigh City Council candidates tonight is the following. Will you work with One Wake and Habitat for Humanity of Wake County to follow the county's lead and invest in the Homeowner Care Fund by the next fiscal year to help keep low-income homeowners in their home? That is your first question. The second question that we will ask candidates is in regard to a strategy to help more low-income residents enter the workforce development pipeline into higher-paying jobs. Unfortunately, in Raleigh and across Wake County, low-income residents face numerous barriers to entering the workforce development pipeline. And thankfully, more assistance than ever before has come through the Federal American Rescue Plan Act to support low-income residents who want to reskill into higher-paying jobs. Across Wake County, a total of $9.2 million has been invested in new programs and financial aid to support low-income residents who want to get into a better career. But this money will expire in 2024. No new funds are currently in sight. Candidates, if you are elected, this will happen on your watch. The second question, therefore, the second question we want to ask you tonight is this: will you meet with One Wake leaders within 90 days of taking office to further discuss our interest around rising house costs, as well as our emerging interest around the workforce development pipeline? Again, will you meet with One Wake leaders within 90 days of taking office to further discuss our interests? For the next hour, we will be hearing candidates respond to our questions, but the audience has a role to play as well. We have distributed red and green cards for audience members to express feedback instead of clapping. Audience members are welcome to use the cards if they so choose. We have not given anyone any advance instructions about how to react. We understand that this is a competitive election and that emotions can run high. However, we are asking all audience members to restrain themselves from cheering, booing, or otherwise interrupting the proceedings. One Wake is a nonpartisan organization that does not endorse candidates, and that's embedded in our DNA. We will work with anyone who is willing to represent the needs of our communities and the people we represent. The questions that we are asking have all been shared in advance with all candidates, and we also organized an advance briefing on Sunday that was attended by most candidates who are here tonight. In other words, there should be no surprises to candidates tonight. In a moment, I will ask candidates to step up by district, and I will ask you both of the questions I just named before. After responding with a clear yes or no to both questions, let me repeat, after responding with a clear yes or no to both questions, you will then have 90 seconds to elaborate on your response. We want to respect your time. We know we don't have that much time tonight, and we expect that you will respect our time in return. If you do not respond with a clear yes or no, we may ask a clarifying question just to make sure that we fully understand your position. And now, I would like to ask the candidates for District A to step forward and stand behind the podium right here. That's candidate Catherine Lawson and candidate Mary Black Branch. Let me repeat our questions. I'll repeat them at the beginning of each district, and then we will go in order of first name. The first question is, will you work with One Wake and Habitat for Humanity to follow the county's lead and invest in the Homeowner Care Fund by the next fiscal year to help keep low-income homeowners in their homes? And the second question, will you meet with One Wake leaders within 90 days of taking office to further discuss our interest around rising housing costs, as well as our emerging interest around the workforce development pipeline? Catherine Lawson, please respond with a clear yes or no to both questions.
Yes, and then absolutely yes. Can we go with that?
Thank you. And now you have 90 seconds to elaborate on your response, and we have a timekeeper up front who will warn you when you have 30 seconds left.
All right. Thank you all so much for hosting us all this evening and for sharing the work that you're doing and the stories that we've heard tonight. I think that living in community is the act of making a home with everybody around me, right? Then that means that I have an obligation to care for everybody in my community, everyone I share my home with. Personally, I'm very excited about Raleigh's future. I think there's a lot of good things happening, but I am committed to making sure that those good things don't force out anyone and that the costs of those good things do not fall inequitably upon folks who have already carried so much of the work of building and investing in the beauty and the resilience and the things that we love about this city. So I hope that I will, if you live in District A, I would like to earn your vote. If you don't live in District A, I would still like to earn your trust, and I would like to work with you as we work on the future of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Mary Black Branch, please respond to the 2 questions with a clear yes or no.
Yes, and also yes. My campaign is all about this idea of what does it mean for residents in this city to be able to thrive, thriving communities, thriving neighborhoods, just a city where everybody has the ability to be able to participate and to have prosperity. And what I'm seeing from the discussions that we've had here is something that's mirrored across the city, across the board. And so I would be honored and eager to be able to be in community in those first few months, if elected, with One Wake, talking about these community-led decisions on how we can build a Raleigh that works for everyone.
Thank you.
I now invite the at-large candidates, Ann Franklin, James Bledsoe, John Odom, Jonathan Melton, Joshua Bradley, Reverend Dr. Portia Rochelle, and Stormy Fort to come. Please line up in the order in which I called your name. As they are coming, we recently just heard the 2 questions. I will ask them again. Will you meet with One Wake leaders within 90 days of taking office to further discuss our interest around rising housing costs as well as our emerging interest around the workforce development pipeline? Actually, that was the second question. And then the first, will you work with One Wake and Habitat of Wake County to follow the county's lead and invest in the Homeowner Care Fund by the next fiscal year to help keep low-income homeowners in their homes? Ms. Franklin, answer both, simple yes or no, and then 90 seconds to give more response.
Yes to each question, yes and yes. I'm very happy to be here in this space tonight because this is where Partners for Environmental Justice was spawned. And I've been a part of that board for more than 25 years. We've made a lot of progress, and the only way that we have made progress here and also throughout the whole city is through collaboration, thoughtful leadership, and nonpartisan approaches. This is the way we get things done in Raleigh. And I want you to know that the quality of the environment affects the value of our homes as well. Do you know that you still can't allow a child to get into Walnut Creek right here? You can't allow them to step in there with their bare feet. The fundamentals of quality living sometimes come down to not only what you can afford, but how you can spend your days in quality time. These are the times when our community has a very big choice to make because current leadership has cut off the resource that is most important to meeting our challenges, and that is tapping our people. That's where the life is, and the intelligence is, and the problem-solving capacity is. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. I'll just call the names. James Bledsoe.
That is not me.
I know. John Odom.
Also not me.
I know. This is for the effect. Jonathan Melton.
That's me. Yes, and yes. You know, a lot of people are moving to Raleigh, and that's not a secret, and we need to make space for them. But we have folks who have housing now that are at risk of losing it. And so it becomes this cyclical compounding problem, and we need to do more to help folks stay in their homes. And so I'm committed to working on this issue. I actually think that the model that is being proposed will be very successful, with the county starting the program and then the municipalities in Wake County joining in. That's actually the same model we followed when we passed our comprehensive non-discrimination ordinance. We worked with the community, Equality North Carolina, Campaign for Southern Equity, to get a non-discrimination ordinance passed that the county stood up, and then the cities and other municipalities joined in. So that's a formula that has worked, and I think it will work here, and I'm excited to do that work together.
Joshua Bradley.
Yes, for the first one. And the second one, I don't want to have to wait 90 days. Like, we could start that even before the election if you want to. Just because even if I don't get elected, I want to see it happen. Hey everybody, my name is Josh Bradley. Friends, neighbors, comrades. I am, the main thrust of my campaign is to combat the large-scale gentrification that has happened in this city. People have been pushed out of the city for a long time, and a lot of people talk about how nice the city of Raleigh is, and I'm not saying it's not, but a lot of that niceness depends on how much money you have and where you live. I think there are good communities in all the city, and as people are getting pushed out of their traditional communities, then a lot of people are left behind, and we lose as a city so much when we have communities that are priced out and gentrified out. There is a great thriving community and all sorts of great thriving communities in this city of ours, but the last several years has seen it broken up, and it's becoming a dystopian corporate nightmare. I think that we need to focus on the people that live here, on the people that built this city, and on the workers that make this city run. And if we don't do that, if we can, on one hand, find money for John Kane with a tax incentive, but we can't find money to help people that are being pushed out, then I think we're missing a beat, and I think we should focus exclusively on trying to make the city a better place for the people that do the work. Thank you.
Reverend Dr. Portia Rochelle.
Good evening. I have been trying to get on the City Council since 2010.
Excuse me, Reverend Doctor, just yes or no on the first two, and then you have your...
I was going into my 30 minutes. Sorry about that.
30 minutes? I know you preach for 30, you can preach, but just 90 seconds.
Some of us preachers do get out of order. I do apologize. Yes. I've been trying to make a difference since 2010. We have a housing crisis. Wake County is the fastest growing county in North Carolina. A lot of people look favorably on Raleigh. Raleigh is a good place to live for the majority of us. But there's so many that have been overlooked for a long time, and it's time for us to turn the things around and make everyone a priority. Development, any type of changes should not put people out of their homes. It should not make people become homeless or feel less important than the next person. So yes, I would be happy to do all I can to help turn this thing around to make every citizen in Raleigh a priority. Thank you.
Stormy Ford.
Thank you, candidates. I would like to invite candidates for District B to step up behind the podium. And one of the privileges of being one of the MCs of these things is that I get to suspend the rules whenever I feel like it. So I will suspend the rules for just a moment to let you know how many people we have here. We have 250 people present in person and 200 via live stream. So feel free to clap and make yourself known right now. Thank you, One Wake. All right, we're back to the cards. Let me read the questions one more time. and then we will call our candidates forward. First question, will you work with One Wake and Habitat for Humanity to follow the county's lead and invest in the Homeowner Care Fund by the next fiscal year to help keep low-income homeowners in their homes? And secondly, will you meet with One Wake leaders within 90 days of taking office to further discuss our interest around rising housing costs, as well as our emerging interest around the workforce development pipeline? Jeremiah Pierce. Megan Patton.
Good evening. Yes and yes. What I hear when I hear those two questions and what I've seen from the work of One Wake are two pieces of my platform that have been critical to me since day one: affordability and community engagement. Affordability is top priority to me, and while I want organizations like One Wake to stay laser focused on things like keeping longtime homeowners in their home, I want our elected officials to also zoom out on to renter assistance and permanent supportive housing for our most vulnerable residents, and I've been running on that platform since day one. It's super important to me. The other thing that I hear about when I hear about the work of One Wake is community engagement, right? One Wake has been listening to its constituents for years to get you all to this piece, and we need community engagement, and that's what my campaign is all about, bringing constituents back to the table. You are One Wake's constituents, you are my constituents, and our story is a shared story. You know, I also have a mom who's trying to move to this area and age in place on a fixed income, and it's not possible for her right now. And so I look to our elders, and I look to our children too. When my daughter becomes a barista or a CNA or whatever she chooses to become, I want there to be a place for her to live in Raleigh too, and the decisions we make right now at the council table affect whether that will be a possibility for us in the future. So I hope to be part of that as your rep and from District B. Thanks so much.
Minu Lee.
Yes and yes. You know, I want to start off by saying I think it's very imperative for everyone to come to the table, to the decision-making table, and come up with comprehensive solutions that actually make a difference. I mean, for far too long, we've seen generational wealth dissipate in our communities, and we need to do something about that. We need to bring that back, and so the way we make progress is by coming to the table and making sure that everyone has a voice in this process so that we can have real progress in the city.
Thank you.
District C, Corey Branch, Frank Fields III, Wanda Hunter. As you are coming forward, I'll read the questions. The first is, will you work with One Wake and Habitat for Humanity to follow the county's lead and invest in the Homeowner Care Fund by the next fiscal year to help keep low-income homeowners in their homes? And then the second is, will you meet with One Wake leaders within 90 days of taking office to further discuss our interests around rising housing costs, as well as our emerging interest around the workforce development pipeline? Mr. Branch.
Yes and yes. And ever since last October, when we were first out on that cold night at Milner Presbyterian Church, I committed then. And out of that commitment there, the city moved forward. And as far as partnering with the county already, we've committed to work with the county and follow the county, helping with property taxes. But one thing that we've also have done is we've already committed $1.5 million for home rehab, as well as first-time home buyers program. But I understand the struggles. I grew up coming here as a kid, riding my bike with the A-Lot program with Mr. Springer, who's a member of the sanctuary. And I've seen the struggles and the changes in this community, being from Fuller Elementary right across the street that Wake County Public Schools just remodeled and redeveloped. But we have to make sure that people like my parents, who are both retired and on fixed income, can also pay property taxes. So I understand the struggle. I understand the challenge, and I'm fully committed to continue to work and be present.
Mr. Fields.
Hello, I'm Dr. Frank Fields, born and raised. the things they put in place to help them. So what's happening is, I was at the Raleigh Housing Alliance meeting, and the people who are getting kicked out of the houses, all they're saying is, well, we got a program for you. Just go online and check it out, or just sign up. They don't know that. If you're about to get kicked out of your house, you don't know how, you may not even have internet, right? So that's another thing. Secondly, another thing, so I focus on outreach to our constituents, but I also want to focus on making sure that our city workers, firefighters, EMS, policemen, Department of Transportation, people who work and live and take care of our city can afford to live in our city. And I don't think it's right that they can't afford to live in our city. So that's something I focus on. Outreach and making sure that our city workers can live in the city that they take care of. Thank you.
So, Dr. Fields, I forgot to...
yes and yes.
Thank you. Ms. Hunter.
So my answers are yes and yes. And I stand here, and I could have came and told a story like Ms. Carmen and Ms. Peebles. I live in College Park, and I experienced the 100% increase in property taxes, so I know what the feeling is like. And we don't have to wait 90 days. So when the pandemic hit, there was a grassroots effort called Stand in the Gap for a Neighbor. So before the federal government even thought about dispersing dollars because people were losing their jobs and would eventually lose their homes, there was a grassroots effort to do that. And I was a part and amongst those women that did that. And we worked with Pullen Memorial Baptist Church, and we raised funds, and we did assist certain families as much as we could with the funds that we raised. And so we don't have to wait 90 days to do that. We still do that to this day. I still do that to this day. So it's not about having a title to be able to do it. I'm going to do it with or without the title to make sure that people stay in their homes, because that's what being in this community means to me.
Thank you.
Candidates for District D, come forward, please. And I'll read the questions one more time. First, will you work with One Wake and Habitat for Humanity to follow the county's lead and invest in the Homeowner Care Fund by the next fiscal year to help keep low-income homeowners in their homes? And secondly, will you meet with One Wake leaders within 90 days of taking office to further discuss our interest around rising housing costs, as well as our emerging interest around the workforce development pipeline? Jane Harrison, please step forward.
Yes and yes. Full disclosure, I'm a member of One Wake. I'm a member of UUFR. I've done relational building, relational meetings on these topics. And I thank you all so much for inspiring this conversation tonight, for bringing the commitment home to our future leaders. What you are bringing to the table, your stories, your solutions, this is what I want to see across our city. In my own canvassing, going door to door in District D, I'm also hearing these same conversations, these same concerns. So as we grow, let us make sure our prosperity reaches everyone. That is the duty I see in leadership. Thank you.
Jen Truman.
Yes and yes. This might be the easiest questions we've been asked all season. I'm committed to investing in our neighbors. That's why I'm running for office. I know what it's like to pay the property bill with the credit card. We did it for our house last year too. It's hard right now for a lot of people in our community. And it's hard for a lot of different reasons. And if there's anything that we can do as elected officials to improve that, I think that we must. That's why we're up here to serve community. But my campaign is rooted in the opposite of hard. It's rooted in optimism, because I believe that when we work together, that we can build a Raleigh that is different and better than the Raleigh we have now. I'm committed to listening deeply, to finding common ground, and to working together. I find creative solutions every day in my job at an architecture firm, or as a working mom, juggling my 9 to 5 with my husband's night shifts. And in my advocacy, I have a track record for advocating for better housing solutions here in Raleigh. And I'm committed to continuing that listening, continuing to meet with anyone and everyone who wants to meet, and discuss how we can help people live in our city, stay in our city, and move to our city, welcoming new neighbors and supporting new residents. I'd appreciate your vote if you live in District D.
Robert Baumgart.
Yes and yes. And I'd like to tell you about my two favorite hours every week. I coach youth ice hockey. So these are 12-year-old kids, boys and girls, who come out there and look at me for leadership to tell them what to do to win a hockey game. And I love coaching these kids and seeing them flourish and seeing them grow in the sport and seeing them grow as teammates. And I look for good teammates or good players every year that are willing to pass the puck, willing to get back and play defense when necessary, willing to take one for the team and do the work to win the game. Listening to One Wake on Sunday, doing some research about you guys, listening to you here tonight, seeing all of you here in person and those online, I'm inspired to want to work with you, and I look forward to meeting with you guys in the first 90 days of taking office.
Thank you.
District E, Christina Jones. Again, the questions: will you work with One Wake and Habitat to follow Wake County's lead and invest in the Homeowner Care Fund by next fiscal year? And the second question: will you meet with One Wake leaders within 90 days of taking office?
Yes and yes. It's really great to see everyone out tonight. It's even more important to see who's not here, because I think that's a really big indicator of who's going to work with you and who's not. My name is Christina Jones, and I am the current and longest serving chairperson for the Raleigh Citizens Advisory Council. They were defunded and dismantled by this council in 2020. So when we talk about outreach and we talk about communication with residents, this council stopped that. I want to bring it back. I want to bring that back and reinstate that to have these conversations, because these conversations should have been going on this entire time. So the fact that Carrie has committed money, the fact that Wake County is committing and we are still behind, frightens me. I want to be part of a council that has these open conversations on a continual basis. I don't want you to wait for me and have to come and beg for me to come. Please continue the great work that One Wake and Habitat for Humanity are doing, because reaching voters where they are is the most important job of council. Council is here to represent you, not developers. So please, please go vote. It is so important. This is the most important vote of my life, and I want to see you guys out there. I want to see you afterwards within the first 90 days so I can learn the things that I don't know, and we can work together to build a better Raleigh for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite the mayoral candidates to step forward. And again, the questions: will you work with One Wake and Habitat for Humanity to follow the county's lead and invest in the Homeowner Care Fund by the next fiscal year to help keep low-income homeowners in their homes? And secondly, will you meet with One Wake leaders within 90 days of taking office to further discuss our interest around rising housing costs, as well as our emerging interest around the workforce development pipeline? Daquanta Copeland.
Yes and yes. Let me just say, I am so excited that we're doing this in the house of the Lord. This excites me. Seeing people in here in this element excites me. But what I would like for that question to do is remove the stipulations of waiting on somebody else. We have waited long enough to partner with people. We can be the leaders. We're the capital. So the city should absolutely get behind this, and I'm excited to work with you guys, win or lose in this election. Personally, I've already stated, I am more than willing to work with this program and to keep your endeavors going, and I can't wait to sit down at the table and meet with you guys. But to be able to go out and touch voters and educate voters on what we need, you guys have done a phenomenal job. So I want to say thank you to all of you who took your time tonight to come out and listen to us, but hold your elected officials accountable. Don't just go vote. Hold us accountable, and also know what has already been done and what has not been done. And under this current leadership, you would not have been able to be invited into this room. So we have one chance, one vote, and the time is now. Make it count.
Mary Ann Baldwin.
Yes, and yes. I want to thank you all for putting tonight's program together. I also want to thank you, Elaine and Carmen, for sharing your stories. That's really what this is all about, helping those who need our help. I want to talk a little bit about the partnerships that we currently have with Wake County. We recently started a new program that will allow us to purchase naturally occurring affordable housing. We approved that very first purchase the other day with CASA. And so we're keeping housing affordable. The second, we approved on Tuesday $6 million for a home repair program over the next 2 years, and another $6 million for down payment assistance. Additionally, we have $1.5 million set aside for home repair. This helps people stay in their homes. The third, we have a partnership with Campbell Law School to prevent eviction. And fourth, the county has a tax rebate program for the disabled and those over 65 on fixed incomes. What I would like to propose when we all meet is that we talk about the ways we can work together to get the word out about what we currently have and how we can help people right now. So thank you.
Dr. Terrence Ruth.
I vote yes and yes. I look forward to working with organizations like One Wake that took every candidate that you have heard and walked them through communities that were negatively impacted by the cost burden of housing and transportation. I look forward to working with organizations like One Wake that said that we need to be in proximity to the lives of people that's impacted by the cost of this city. Also looking to work with organizations like One Wake that said that we need to become students of the community. If you've noticed, it's the only forum where we did more listening than talking. Being a student of your Carmen Kaufmans, being a student of your Reverend Lisa Yaboa. For me, it is in what we learn from you that produce good policy and that allow for you to keep your homes and allow for you to afford to stay here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Jeremiah Pierce, is that right? Jeremiah Pierce, Frank Pierce, District B, is here. Feel free to come up. He said he was coaching and it's a bit late. The two questions: will you work with One Wake and Habitat for Humanity to follow the county's lead and invest in the Homeowner Care Fund by the next fiscal year to help keep low-income homeowners in their homes? That's the first question. The second is, will you meet with One Wake leaders within 90 days of taking office to further discuss our interest around rising housing, as well as our emerging interest around the workforce development pipeline? Simply answer yes or no to both questions, then you have 90 seconds to make response.
So my response is yes to both? My response is yes to both of those questions, but also want to go and elaborate further. So I want to actually meet with you guys monthly so that we have a better communication with each other and are able to talk. One of the things that we are talking about tonight is being enriched in the community. I volunteer coach for the City of Raleigh and the YMCA. I coach about 10 teams a year. To be in the community, you actually have to be in the community. My opponents are some great people, and they can have some great ideas, but the difference between them and me is I'm actually in the community. I grew up in Raleigh, in Southeast Raleigh, right next to Herb Seafood. I have watched it change, and I have watched my areas I grew up in be gentrified. It is personal to me. Being in the community and coaching with the kids, you learn so much. But to be in the community means you have to be there before you go to public office. If you aren't there before public office, those people did not matter to you. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that they were not high enough on your ranking to go make a difference in their life. And that is the biggest difference between me and my community, is that I show up for my community all year long and not just when I'm running for office. I am Frank Pierce, and I am running for Raleigh City Council District B. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from the Reverend Dr. James Kabukamoto.
Good evening, my friends. I am the Reverend Dr. James Kabukamoto, and I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as the lead minister at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, and also serving as a member of the One Wake strategy team. The great 19th century Unitarian minister Theodore Parker coined the phrase, "of the people, by the people, for the people." Lincoln later borrowed it, but Parker started it. And my friends, our gathering this evening has been a gathering of the people, by the people, and for the people. My friends, this is what democracy is supposed to look like. Yes. Ordinary people, all of us, gathering together, voicing our concerns about real-world problems, and asking candidates for public office to respond. Let me clarify what we have heard so far and talk about next steps. This evening, we have heard about the history of One Wake and the tens of thousands of people it represents. This evening, we have heard how the unaffordable housing, the crisis of housing, the crisis of unaffordable housing in this city has already led to an exodus of low-income families from many neighborhoods. And a disproportionate number of those families have been black and brown families. This evening, we have heard about how affordable housing in general and skyrocketing property taxes more specifically are still the issues that keep many long-term low-income homeowners up at night. And this evening, we have heard how Wake County elected officials and staff, at One Wake's urging, have taken the lead in creating a program that will provide $5 million in funding for long-term low-income homeowners. What do we think about that? So this evening we have asked Raleigh City Council candidates for their support in providing additional funds to help long-term low-income homeowners and their willingness to meet with One Wake leaders to work out the details of how this might work. This evening, you have heard their answers with your own ears. You don't need for me to be up here to spell out for you who said what. And I heard many of our candidates give strong, unequivocal yeses to our ask. What do you think about that? I will say in response to something I heard that we have heard from all of you that current city programs are not sufficient. I hope that when we continue these conversations later, we will not hear about city current programs being sufficient. I do want to note, I want to thank those candidates who are here this evening. I do want to note that James Bledsoe, John Odom, and Stormy Fort were not here this evening. And I want you to think critically about that. And David Knight, thank you. I do want to note that Councilmember Fort made a commitment to us last October to work with One Wake on this issue. What do you think about this evening? You think that this evening was good? I've got some news for you. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what any one of us in this room thinks. You know what matters? It matters what we do next. So my question for you is, what are you going to do next? Vote. That's right. We're going to vote. Early voting in Wake County starts 2 weeks from today. If you are going to vote in the upcoming election, I want to hear you say, I am going to vote. But it is not enough, my friends. It is not enough for each one of us to vote. I am asking each one of us, either here this evening or watching me on your sofa on YouTube, to commit to turning out 3 additional voters in the upcoming election. Talk to your friends. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your coworkers. Talk to your family members. Talk to anybody like those of us here who want to live in a city, who want to live in a county that serves all of its people, not only a select, powerful few. If you are going to talk to somebody else about voting in the upcoming election, let me hear you say, I'm going to talk to somebody else. Good. My friends, there is one last thing that we need to do. We need to keep organizing. We need to keep on growing this coalition of congregations and civic organizations so that we can make sure that our city government, our county government, and our state government will always be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people they serve. If you are willing to keep organizing, I want to hear you say, I'm going to keep organizing. Good. One Wake is going to be holding organizing trainings in the beginning of December. Stay tuned for more details from your congregational leaders. Now, my friends, let's give ourselves a round of applause. I now ask you to join me in the spirit of reflection, meditation, and prayer. God of mystery, God of life, God of love, may we be thankful. May we be thankful for this opportunity that we have had this evening to come together and to take that next step in creating here in the city of Oaks a beloved community that nourishes the lives of all who call it home. May we hold in our hearts, may we truly hold in our hearts all those who are running for public office, as we lift up our hopes that in the coming days, weeks, and months, they will be guided by compassion and courage in the work that they do on behalf of all of us. May we be true. May we hold fast may we not falter in our pursuits of our dream for a world that is more compassionate, more just, more sustainable, and more peaceful for us all. And may we discover within ourselves the hope, the courage, the strength, the patience, and the perseverance to make that shared dream a reality in our lives and in this world we share. With our hearts open to your inspiring, sustaining, redeeming, transforming power, we pray. Amen. Good evening, my friends. Travel safely home.